So one of the tricky things about approaching the book of Proverbs in a sermon is that there's generally no story. And I am what's called like a narrative theologian. I live and breathe stories. So instead of trying to kind of bring all of this together into an overarching story, we're going to go through these parables in clumps and some individually to hear the wisdom that they have about what it means to be a friend and what it means to not be a friend. But then we're going to end with a story about friendship. Now, I would like to add my own proverb about friendship from the books of the Proverbs of Eric. I don't recommend that book. It's not very good. It also doesn't exist. But a proverb about friendship. A good friend will bail you out of jail. Your best friend will be in the cell with you, saying, "That was fun." So, obviously a joke, but like most of my jokes, I mean something serious behind it. A friend is there. A friend is present. A friend is with you. So now we're going to go through, and I've grouped some of these together. I encourage you to read along with me. So Solomon says, "A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother." When we talk about friendship, true friendship, there is a natural tension that arises. And that is the tension between what it means to be a friend, a true friend, and, say, family, and especially siblings. And it's because you can really have a true friendship where you love them more, in a sense, you get along with them more and better than your siblings. Because you chose your friends. You did not choose your siblings. If you are the oldest of the family, your siblings were foisted on you. And if you are the younger, you were foisted on your older siblings. Now, they say that blood is thicker than water. And as it turns out, that's technically true, but only barely. And as these two proverbs hint at, a true friend, a real friend, like that friendship with a capital F, can easily have more constancy than, say, your relationship with your siblings. I can't even recall. I can't count the number of times as both a pastor and just a human being who, when I found out that somebody has a sibling, and you say, "Oh, I didn't know you had a brother or sister," and things get a little quiet. They kind of look at their feet maybe, and they say, "Yeah, we don't talk." And you know that there's a world of pain in those words. But a true friend, real friendship, that is not the case. You will either work it out or you just won't be friends anymore. There is a sense in which a friend, a real, true friend, could very easily stick with you through adversity more so than your own brothers and sisters. So he continues, "Seldom set foot in your neighbor's house, too much of you and he will hate you." And I heard you laugh because you all know that concept, overstaying your welcome. Someone, I think last night said, "Yeah, the truest way to lose a friend is to live with them," or something like that. But there is some serious wisdom there, not just in terms of overstaying your welcome or anything like that, but friendship is unique because you love each other. You may go to the mat for them at any given time over any issue, but you also get time apart. It's not like your siblings when you were growing up, when you wish you could get away from them, but mom was like, "No, you go play with your brothers and sisters because you're driving me nuts," or something like that. And it's not like a spouse where you live with them, they're always there. A friendship is different because you get that space. And that can actually be a strength for friendship. And then the next couple of lines, Like a club or sword or sharp arrows, the man who gives false testimony against his neighbor. Like a bad tooth or a lame foot is reliance on the unfaithful in times of trouble. This is what it means to not be a friend. Sometimes it's easy to figure out what a thing is by saying what it isn't. A friend does not lie about you or spread rumors about you of questionable truth. And in fact, the psalmist says those are like a weapon, because gossip, whether you mean it to be or not, is weaponized words. And they can kill. And a friend who you cannot rely on when the chips are down, when things really, really matter, are like a foot that could give out, or like a knee that you can't really rely on, or a tooth you can't chew with. It's like, well, then are they really a friend? It may be an acquaintance, maybe friend with a lowercase f, but not a true friend. And then the next couple, and I'm going to go a little bit out of order here, like one who takes away a garment on a cold day, or like vinegar poured on soda is one who sings songs to a heavy heart. Like a madman shooting firebrands or deadly arrows is a man who deceives his neighbor and says, I was only joking. And then skipping down a bit, if a man loudly blesses his neighbor early in the morning, it will be taken as a curse. It may not seem like it at first, but these proverbs are all about the fact that a friend knows what you are going through. For example, the first one about somebody taking away a garment on a cold day, singing a song that is uplifting to someone who is grieving and emotionally crushed. That is not a friend, because a friend will already know. A friend knows you. A friend can come alongside you. Because the nature of a friend is that there's enough distance that they don't get caught up in what is crushing you necessarily, but they know where you're at. They're not going to come to you and say, as you are, say, grieving this loss, you are crushed and world weary. They're not going to say, hey, cheer up. Don't tell me to cheer up. That's not what a friend does. A friend knows where you're at. A friend knows not to deceive you, and then when it crushes you and you freak out, they don't say, hey, it was just a prank, bro, or I'm only joking. A friend knows what you do and do not joke about, because a friend knows and cares about the things that you care about. And I love that last one. If a man loudly blesses his neighbor in the morning, it will be taken as a curse. A friend knows your rhythms. They know what kind of person you are. And in this case, they know if you're not a morning person. I don't care what kind of compliment or wonderfully nice thing you have to say about me. If you say it at 6 a.m, our friendship is over. Period. A true friend understands that and knows when to back off. They know what you do and do not joke about. They maybe have a good sense of what you need. In a weird way, maybe sometimes better than a spouse, in certain ways. Better is open rebuke than hidden love. Wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. A friend knows when to say what you need to hear and not what you want to hear. Somebody who always tells you what you want to hear is no friend of yours. And if you go down to the second to the last, whoever flatters his neighbor is spreading a net for his feet. He is setting you up to fall flat on your face. A true friend even if it is uncomfortable, will tell you the truth. Now, there's kind of an inverse of this where, that's great. A true friend will tell you that, but God grant us the wisdom and courage to listen to something that we need to hear, even if we don't want to hear it. As much as we want to talk about what it means to be a true friend, or what it means to have a true friend, all of this can apply to what it means to be a friend. And if you have those rare people in your life that will tell you what you need to hear, God give us the strength to hear it. Perfume and incense bring joy to the heart, and the pleasantness of one's friend springs from his earnest counsel. A friend, true friend, forged over years of struggle and of fun, will have proven him or herself. You know that what they're going to say matters, and it's important, and it is wise. These people are rare in our lives, but they are profound gifts. As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. There is something about the exchange of ideas between friends, where friends are willing to challenge what you're saying and thinking. Because as iron rubs against iron, the end result is something so much better. I'll give you kind of a quick, little example from my life. We were out visiting my best friend. His name is Carl, who oddly enough has now the job that Pastor Christensen left to come here. And he was Pastor Christensen's associate pastor in Illinois. Just a weird web of relationship. But our families are really good friends. So we went out to visit Illinois in the dead of winter, which means that it was frozen solid. They had like a blizzard, and it was terrifying. I love California for that reason. It's a complicated series of events, but his church, he's a pastor obviously, and there's a sister church, and it ended up, because there was a tragedy in somebody's life, that there was a church without a pulpit. And so I said, Carl, if we need to, I'm on vacation, but if we need to get it so that I'm preaching over there and you can then preach there and whatever, we can do it. And so he's like, okay. And so he made some phone calls. Yeah, we're going to need to do it, which means we had like an afternoon to plan a sermon, and not even the full afternoon. It was getting close to evening by that time. And so our wives were very kind. They said, we'll watch the kids. We go over to his office, and we're trying not to panic. And then we start bouncing ideas, just back and forth. Well, what about, excuse me. Whoa. I'll edit that out of the video or something. You start bouncing ideas back and forth. And a really good business partnership or whatever, you'll see this too. But there's something powerful about this happening among friends. And, well, no, I don't like that idea. That doesn't make sense. And this works. And then the end result is sharper, more distinct, more distinguished. It's so much better than if you were alone. Friendship, true friendship, will leave you better than how you started. He who rebukes a man will in the end gain more favor than he who has a flattering tongue. This seems kind of odd, because have you met the people they're just really good at saying nice things to people? Well, we like to be around them. It is nice to have somebody who's just nice. But the person who gains the most influence is the person with the keen insight who also knows how to say it. The Apostle Paul wrote, "Speak the truth in love." And we tend to just focus on that first part, speak the truth, as though the second part said, speak the truth as though you were a jerk or something like that. But it's rare, but there are people who when they speak, you listen, even if it's hard, even if it's a rebuke, because they are so conspicuously wiser. That is the mark of somebody you want as a friend. And again, who flatters his neighbor is spreading a net for his feet. A really dumb example of this is like if you grew up with your mom telling you that you're the handsomest boy in school or the prettiest girl in school. Like, just objectively, that's not going to be true. Just statistically. I'm not calling you ugly. But if you go into this situation thinking, yeah, I'm pretty attractive here in this school, and it turns out you're like everybody else, about average, that's going to be an embarrassing realization. In other words, the flatterer is not someone that you want to have a friend, as a friend, at least a true friend, because what they say won't represent reality. And then finally, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Buried within this is a profound principle of friendship. The friends that you have, and I'm not talking the truest, the bestest of friends. That's not a word. The best of friends, there we go. But the friendships that you have, the acquaintances that you have, you probably have them, and they definitely started because they had something you wanted or needed, and you had something that they wanted or needed. That's just how relationships begin. The truest of friends will love you and care about you when you have nothing to give. When you are at your low point. You are not very much fun to be around because of tragedy. And yet they will come alongside. They're not going to try to cheer you up. They're not going to tell you nice things, but they're willing to sit with you and be with you. They give you their presence. That is a true friend. And at that, I want to end with the story. This comes from the life of Jesus, actually at the very end of the book of John. Jesus is he is with his disciples. They are having their Last Supper, celebrating Passover. And interestingly enough, Jesus at this point, he says, "You are no longer servants, but I call you my friends." And then he says, after some conversation, he says to Peter, his disciple, that Peter, you will betray me before the night is over. Or I'm sorry, not betray. You will deny that you know me. Now, Peter has been groomed to be the leader of the disciples. He is the apostolic leader, the first leader of the church. And yet Jesus says, you will pretend like you do not know me. And Peter, he's loud, he's boisterous. He says, absolutely not. No way. And Jesus, you can imagine him being like, can you just calm down? It's going to happen. And so when Jesus is arrested and he's put on trial, Peter is hanging around kind of the courtyard, but he doesn't want to get too close. And for good reason. The leader of a potentially dangerous movement is on trial, which means the authorities will be looking for the next in line. That definitely means Peter, and that probably means the rest of his disciples, which is why the rest of Jesus' disciples scatter, because they're coming for him. And so when Peter's there, like they hear his accent. He's got a Galilean accent that's like you hear somebody from Texas. You're like, you're from Texas, aren't you? What gave me away? Yeah. And so they're saying, you're a Galilean. You're with the Nazarene. And Peter, recognizing the danger, he's like, no, I don't know him. No, I don't know him. I tell you, I swear to you, I do not know him. He denies his friend. Now, after Jesus goes to his death, after God raises him from the dead, and through a series of events, we find Jesus walking with Peter on the shores of Galilee. And you can imagine at this point, because Jesus hasn't brought it up yet, that Peter's heart is still crushed. It says that after he realized that he had denied Jesus, like he said, he wept bitterly. And as Peter is walking with Jesus, you just sense this hesitancy. Now, I'll tell you what they said to each other in how it's usually translated in English, but know that it's wrong, and I'll tell you why in a second. Jesus says, "Peter, do you love me?" And Peter says, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Tend my sheep." "Peter, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Feed my lambs." Like, in other words, he's reinstating Peter as the leader of the disciples. And then a third time in parallel with the number of times that Peter denied that he knew Jesus, he said, "Peter, do you love me?" And at that point, Peter's heart breaks, and he said, "Lord, you know all things. You know I love you." And in effect, he is reinstated. But we miss something fundamental. Now, in Greek, there are several different words for love. And if you've been around the church long enough, you've probably heard that before. There are two words for love used in this section. The first is agape. Many of you have probably heard agape. That is unconditional love. The second word is philos. It is more of a friendship. It's not the unconditional love. It's an exchange. It's lesser, but it's still important. It's the love between two true friends. Now listen to how it should be translated. Jesus is walking with Peter. Jesus says, "Peter, do you love me?" Love, agape. Peter says, "Yes, Lord, you know I'm your friend." Peter can't say he loves Jesus with agape because agape is unconditional, and Peter put conditions. Second time, Jesus says, "Peter, do you love me?" And Peter says, "Yes, Lord, you know I am your friend." A third time, Jesus says, "Peter, are you my friend?" And Peter's heart breaks. Because Jesus has gotten down to Peter's level. He has met him where he is at. A true friend like Jesus came down to Peter at the lowest of the low level. Peter realized he denied Jesus. He has nothing to offer Jesus anymore. And Jesus meets Peter where he is at. The truest mark of friendship. And as Jesus is a friend to Peter, Jesus is a friend to you and me. That in so much as we have nothing to offer God, we are stained and sinful, Jesus, the true friend, meets us where we are at. Jesus goes to his grave, knowing that even when we are at the lowest of the low, he still comes to us and says, "I am your friend." He takes us down into the grave with him. He raises us to new life and gives us a new heart that loves him. Buried deep within you, given to you by the Holy Spirit, is a heart that loves Jesus unconditionally. Whether you see it or not, whether you find it hard to believe. And it's because Jesus is your truest friend. Be friends to others. Have friends that are truly gifts from God in your life, knowing that it starts with this truest friend of Jesus who has come down to you to lift you up. Let's pray.